Hello, I'm PX and welcome back to the episode of my Minecraft Xbox Update Adventures Let's Play. This is the Let's Play where I'm playing through the various updates that have come out for Minecraft on the Bedrock version, building stuff, killing stuff, and of course, destroying stuff. And today I'm starting in an entirely different place because one of the big projects I've been putting a lot of time into in this past week has been the Big End project, covering it in glass and making it this weird kind of monument to a bunch of glass, but also to a way to make an Enderman farm. It's super cool, it's super interesting, but one of the things about the end being covered in glass is it should stop Enderman spawning here. Enderman cannot spawn in glass, it's a transparent block, but yet if you look around, you always find Enderman. There are Endermen in every corner, they're nowhere near as common as they used to be, but yet they're all around here. So what's the deal with that? And the simple answer is that I need to make sure that the remaining bits of end, because they're teleporting from end bits over there, end bits over there, end bits all over everywhere, I need to make sure that every bit of, end stone or every bit of non-glass that is connected in some way is torched up. Because although the long-term solution is obviously to remove the end glass and to place over the towers and stuff, the truth is that's like a 50-60 hour solution, which I do want to get round to. I'd love to destroy that island, destroy the other islands. It's something I'm in the process of doing slowly, but in the meantime, I'd like to stop the Enderman spawning just all over the place because it also makes mining harder. So today, we're going to be stopping Enderman spawning like 99% of the time by just going to these three there's like three main islands, and we're going to be covering them in torches so that no more Enderman can spawn, because that's just a big issue I'd like to get done and out of the way. So while we do that, I wanted to talk about some of the big mistakes I've made, because I used to be kind of cautious about, like, if you talk about bad things that you've done, it's going to be like a weird example of like, so you endorsing that? But no, I think anyone who actually understands anything is going to be like, yeah, these are all ridiculous stories of things you definitely should not do. And yeah, because a lot of people enjoyed the story of setting myself on fire. And again, I feel like no one set themselves on fire because of that. Everyone's realized like, as it turns out, setting yourself on fire is bad. You should not do that. So anyway, I figured why not tell some stories that are not quite as bad, not quite as deadly, and like life risking, but are just as stupid and like had just as bad an outcome, just not in the same way. So yeah, here are some of the worst stories that remind you that life is a series of choices, and usually you get to make bad decisions under the condition of like, well, it's fine to make a bad decision if you enjoy it in the moment or whatever, but these weren't even great ones in the moment. Also, you see the problem with Enderman, like you look the wrong way and suddenly you've got like two dudes fighting you to death. It's just, this is why we need to torch things up. But yeah, so decisions are a thing where you realize at the end, like, well, I mean, you've grown as a person, you've learned, and maybe you won't make the same mistake, but in some of these cases, it's just like, man, I don't even know what my, like, risk analysis benefit was. I was just doing ridiculous stuff. Like this first story, which relates to meeting someone new for the very first time, because I have a lot of I have a lot of friends that come from like all different, I guess let's call it circles, like of like kind of how in the traditional American school it's like, oh, there's the jocks and there's the this and there's the that. In the same way, I always had a bunch of friends from a bunch of different like friend groups, I would say, and in one of those like friend groups there was a guy who I really liked. We'd known each other for quite some time, and he appreciated me, I appreciated him. It was a good friendship we had, and one time he's telling me about a new friend that he made recently because he lives above a pub near him or something, and he's like, oh yeah, so there's this really nice guy, you've got to meet him. He's just so nice, so friendly, like the nicest guy you'll ever meet. He has this really weird thing for burning bins though, like so bin means I guess trash can if you're not familiar with the term in the UK. But he's like, he really likes burning bins though, which a little bit strange, but like besides that, he's the nicest guy you'll ever meet. And I'd never heard like something like that about someone before. Like, oh yeah, this guy's really nice besides the fact that he literally commits crime. I think like that's arson, right, on a regular basis. But I mean, like, oh yeah, sure, okay, that sounds kind of nice. Like, oh, it's Mr. Austin Man, and I assume nothing's gonna come off it because I don't meet most people that I hear about. Oh god, see, this is why it's the worst. That could have very almost killed me because Endermen are just the worst in general. So when they're at the edge, just knock them off. But yeah, so basically, if something comes up and it's like, oh yeah, so oh gosh, I hate this so much. Something comes up and it's like, I don't assume it's ever going to go anywhere, but then, like, literally the next day or, like, 2 days later, we're all out, for a drink or something. This is when we're quite young, so it's somewhere in public, and it's like, oh, yeah, we're hanging out, and then, by pure chance, we just run into this guy. He's by himself or something, and it's like, oh, hey, what are the odds? It's George or Jordan. I don't know what his name was, but it was something like that, and it's like, oh, hey, and, me, a couple friends and him are speaking to him, and he's such a nice guy. He's so friendly, he's, like, actually genuine, blah, 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 like, all the things you like in a person. He he is, as the person suggested, very much a lovely person to speak to. And it's like, ah, you know what, this is a great friend. If you just ignore the fact that in his spare time, sometimes he likes to commit crimes, you know, like arson is a pretty bad one too. But like, if you ignore that fact, he's a really nice guy. And I would consider him a friend after even this like 15-minute conversation. But then, you know, like a little bit after that, you know, he starts joining in. And then, I don't know, maybe like just after his first drink, he's like, you know what we should do? I reckon we need to burn a bin. And it's a kind of funny thing, like, haha, good joke, because that's your thing, right? Like, I don't know how, you know, committing arson ever becomes your thing, but he's like, yeah, we should burn a bin. I'm like, ah, yeah, that's a funny joke. And I kind of don't humor it too much, but then he asks someone else, and they're like, ah, yeah, maybe not tonight, maybe another night, man. Like, you know, there are plenty of other things to do besides arson's day. But then I feel like, I feel like he just like speaks to enough people, and eventually someone's like, you know, yeah, let's burn a bin. One of my like crazier friends, same friend actually from the fire story, is like, you know, actually, why don't we set fire to a bin? That would be a fun little story. And it's like, okay, then I have no idea how this is gonna go. I don't think I want to be involved with this, and but apparently the course of the evening that our friends are taking is gonna be burning a bin. Okay, that's weird, but like we're probably not gonna be able to find one. Like, how are we even gonna light a fire? You know, this is a weird pipe dream if I've ever heard one. But no, as you might imagine from someone who has a reputation for this, the guy is like, okay, so we want to burn a bin. What are the plans? And he's laid this all out there. Like, okay, so we can do like public bin, we can do like residential, we can do like, you know, we got a bunch of different options here. And then, so again, at this point, this is something that I would say I'm mostly opposed to. Like, not heavily, like more like, you know, this is stupid. We're doing something with a high risk for very little reward, because like, you know, there are many things you can burn that aren't illegal. Pro tip, by the way, like yourself, that's not illegal as far as I'm aware. Oh gosh, oh man. But there are many things you can burn that aren't illegal in the world. How am I? What is happening to me right now? But yeah, there are many things you can burn in the world like that. And yeah, so I'm like, you know, maybe we should do one of those instead, maybe. But yeah, then it starts to happen, and it's like, okay, looks like we're burning a bin tonight. And yeah, so I feel so much guilt about this in reflection, but it's like, okay, so we decided to just take some random strangers' recycling bin. Again, this is my anti-recycling stance right here, apparently. You know, the guy's just like, oh yeah, so we'll just like randomly take someone's bin, and it's like, okay, now we have a bin. What are we gonna do with it? These things, you know, they don't really light on fire. They're made from plastic. Again, if you have one of the wheelie bins in the UK, you know that these things aren't fit for fire. And again, the whole time I'm thinking like, what is this guy's thing? Like, how is this a hobby to have? Like, if how is he not familiar that plastic doesn't burn? All bins are made of plastic, as far as I'm aware, and the ones that aren't would be made of metal, right? There aren't paper you know, I just didn't understand this guy's thing, and it's like, okay, so this seems like a thing you should be aware of. And yeah, long story short, what I'm going to be saying here is that over the course of the evening, we did decide to full-on light the bin on fire. And the craziest bit, again, this is like such a surreal memory in my head, is like this is the one time I've ever, I would say, burnt property of someone that I heavily regretted, you know, like didn't want to. Someone had to like probably pay more money to get one of those new ones. But then the actual story of the thing itself, it's also bizarre, because we're like, okay then, so we'll fill it with paper or something, you know, that will, you know, catch a light. And then we lit it on fire and then put it in the river. And it was like a Viking funeral for a recycling bin, which, you know, maybe that's a beautiful analogy for what society is these days and what we're doing with our recycling efforts. But I just thought to myself, like, the whole time, like, I don't know why I'm involved with this, but apparently I am. And I feel like that's an interesting feeling, because most of the time you imagine when you picture, like, I don't know, like, people doing any form of, like, crime or gang or whatever behavior, you're like, yeah, everyone there wants to be doing it or whatever. But then you start to realize after you make some mistakes for yourself that maybe, just maybe, you know, some people are just there and are like, well, I mean, I want to hang out, and the people that hanging out right now apparently means committing some crimes. And you know, then when you consider like, oh yeah, in some hierarchies, you get some really good points in the social groups for just committing some basic stuff. You're like, it makes sense now. Not everyone wants to do something, but sometimes you go there regardless. And this applies to like when you have a big group of friends. Generally speaking, if you're torn on what to go for dinner, whoever's the pickiest and the most like making a fuss about it will get to have their option first, right? And when it comes to being in a group, whoever suggests the most crimey thing can sometimes come out ahead. Like, that can be a big thing for you. So yeah, if you have a friend who pretends to be gluten intolerant, even though they're not, just because they like the attention or whatever, and if you have a friend that likes to commit crimes or burn bins perhaps, just remember that their opinion will often matter more than yours. So if you want to counteract that, you got to have your own little version of things. Again, that's not the lesson I should have learned from this, but it kind of is that, like, you're not, even if the majority of a group doesn't want something, sometimes the most extreme opinion, you know, the fact that people like are more frothing about it, people are more willing to do it and are like, well, it's boring if we don't do this. Like, if you ignore all the alternatives, you can get your extreme solutions through, which is a terrible lesson and is a terrible way that society works. But yeah, it is. It seems to be the way the world works, at least right now. So yeah, there you go. Fun lesson, fun life lesson with Toycat right there for you. A bit of a depressing one maybe, or maybe it's a fun one about the time that I held a Viking funeral for a recycling bin. You know, you can be the judge of how you consider this story. Also, do you see how like placing glass on every bit of the end is quite the task, by the way? Like, it's such a time-consuming thing. I spent hours and hours on just the glass, and every single time I go to the, like, I find a new patch, and I'm like, oh, this has to be covered in glass too, doesn't it? And it's like, yeah, it does. There's a lot of bits you gotta cover in glass as well. And that's gonna take some time, you know. But yeah, so fun facts of Toycat. One time, I think I committed group arson. I guess probably like honestly, again, I don't want to be like pro fire or anything, but like I feel like every like teenage guy has just this weird obsession with fire in their head. Because I saw this in science class too. Like as soon as they bring out like the Bunsen burners or even just any form of like fire, people are just like enthralled by it, like, oh, you know, like I think it's like a caveman desire that's just, it might be in a lot of women as well. You know, don't wanna make this a gendered based thing, but I mean, I feel like there's definitely a high percentage of people that just like fire, just like the concept of fire, just like everything about it, and I find that fascinating. Also, I find this annoying. So, second story of terrible mistakes I've made. Because again, as far as like, you know, there was no bad outcome for me. It was just a bad outcome for someone else. And again, that like, I don't know why, like, it's like almost like a neutrality principle. I hate the idea of like negatively affecting someone. Like, oh, they had to spend £60 on a new bin probably. I mean, they can probably do a police report and report it as stolen or something, but like, where's that ever gonna go? Are they gonna prosecute the kids to get their £60 replacement back? You know, it's like it's just someone lost for no really good reason there, and that sucks. But you know what sucks even more? This one time I walked maybe 10 miles home because what? Okay, so I'm at a party. A friend invites me one time, like, oh, do you want to come camping? He's not the greatest friend at the time, but it's like, you know, I would like to improve this friendship. Let's go camping. And me and a friend, you know, like, are both there with a bunch of strangers, basically, and this friend, and then my ex-girlfriend. Like, that I know one person, and I know my ex-girlfriend. That is the, and then I also know, like, the close friend. So one kind of like, ooh, we don't really know each other too well. One ex-girlfriend and one actual friend is at this party, as opposed to a bunch of other kind of people. And it's like, you know, I'll get to know some new people, but the new people that, again, I don't want to ever dismiss people, because I feel like you can always, like, you can bond with anyone you want to, and knowing that means, like, throw yourself in a social situation, you'll probably become friends eventually. That's why schools work so well. They throw you people you don't want to be friends with, and then eventually, you know, you have friends or whatever. Like, that's how it eventually works, or at least people you don't hate to the core. That's what the school experience does for you. So I'm like, you know, I don't like these people right now. They seem a bit kind of weird, but we'll work this one out, right? But no, things didn't seem to go that way. One of the dudes was the then boyfriend of my ex-girlfriend, and he just did not seem to like me at all because of that, it seems. So it's like, you know, one person down, that's kind of fun. But you know, that's fine. Like, everyone has weird jealousy problems sometimes. Like, if this is your way of expressing those, then you do you, man. Like, you can do whatever you want. That's the beauty of the planet. But so yeah, I was like, okay then, so one down, but at least there's other guys here. But the other guys has this weird thing where, like, I don't think they'd grown out of their, like, you know, maybe, you know, when you're super young, you're like physical rough sports, whatever. Like, there's a few weird games like British Bulldog, whatever. We were like 19 and, like, you know, drinking, and they're like, oh, let's play that midway through. And it's like, so we're going back to when we were like, I kind of picture an age where that was appropriate, like when we were 11, and that was the most fun way to hang out. Like, again, this is a game that I have not played. Oh gosh, we're gonna die so bad, aren't we? Oh, we didn't look at any of the Endermen, apparently. But you see how, like, this tiny island, because it's one of the few places without glass net, just spawns Endermen everywhere. Because, again, we're going to use this for an Enderman farm eventually. We just have to light up every bit for now that isn't this and destroy every bit that we can. But let's fly up from here, and let's go to the rest of this. And let's just spot any Enderman part, and let's cover it up. Make things work just wonderfully. But yeah, so basically it's like, oh man, this is a really, really strange party. And then to make things worse, oh actually, sorry, there was two friends there, I just realized, but one of the friends we kind of discount later because so after a while we're like, okay, we're gonna sit around the campfire, do nice normal like camp out style stuff. It was gonna be a fun, interesting experience. I'm like, okay, let's do this. Let's have our fun moments. Let's have that fun like camp out style experience. But then I don't know, like maybe 5 minutes into talking, one of my friends just has a really weird freak out. I think we're playing maybe like a truth or dare or something. Again, it's like, okay, sure, this is what we're doing. Fine. It's a good way to know strangers. Bit of a weird, a bit of a 13-year-old sleepover game, but sure, if you want to play truth or dare, play truth or dare. It's I'm not too against that. But then like the first truth this guy gets, he like entirely like freaks out, and it turns into like but I'm not sure if like, I'm not sure if I'm a guy or a guy. I think he wanted to be. He felt like he was somewhere in between. He felt like telling everyone that he was a guy was a lie or something. Like again, it was something no one had particularly cared about. Not because we're like, oh yeah, we hate that you're this, but because it's like, hey, it doesn't matter to us. We'd always said that. Like it doesn't matter what you say or this or that. Like just you can be you. It's fine. We recognize that. But it was like, nah, it's not okay. This is that. So he goes with like He takes like one of the people, I think it was my ex-girlfriend, over to the corner, and they just start talking about it, and they're gonna like resolve their issues. But then after a while, the friend who is with the ex-girlfriend goes over there, and he's like, I'm just gonna check on them, see what's up, and he never comes back. And then after a while, like another person's like, I'm gonna check what's going on over there, and then this happens until there's literally 3 of us left. So basically, the entire party has turned into like, and this is for an hour or so, has turned into let's make this guy feel better, which is good. That's fine. Like it's how bro-ish they are to do this to a guy they don't know. But then like so it's like, okay, so the whole party's just over there now. I guess we'll go join in over there or whatever. And then the guy's just like, no, I don't want to see you. I don't want to talk to people I know for this one, like because again, people you know you in a particular way. If you want to break out of that shell, it's best you don't know people that you know. This is why when people go to a new school or something, or to a new environment, you can reinvent yourself, because the person you think you are, the person you perceive yourself as, is the person you portray yourself to be to the outside world, and vice versa. Like the person, there's so much that has to be covered. But yeah, no, the person you believe yourself to be is the person the outside world sees, and the person you believe the outside world sees is the person you'll act like. So yeah, it's an interesting little bit of thing, and because of that, he's like, well, I want to be someone else right now, so having you guys around isn't useful. So it's like, okay, yep, the only friends you've got here, push those away. We'll just be over here in the corner, just the 2 of us at this point. And it's like, man, we should just leave this. I just want to get out of here. I'm gonna go home. I'm done with this. And it's like, we're like 10 miles away, dude. We're in insert tiny village here that's kind of near a big town that's many miles away from our big town. And it's like, nah, it'll be fine. Like, how far can it really be? So we set off. I think we even grabbed a bottle of some of the stuff we were drinking at the time. And we're like, okay, we're going to go home. It's going to be a great time. We're going to get away from this nonsense. And long story short, I think it was 10 miles. Which, it's a long walk anyway, right? So we leave at about midnight midnight or something. 20 past midnight in my head is the number. We stumble into the big town. This is a village near a town. After about 2 hours. And once we get there, we lose the bottle, and it's like, okay, well, it's fine. We'll just, we're not far from home right now. So while we're stumbling through, this town, we end up in, again, I have no idea what this was, but we walked through the woods for like 20 minutes, and then we stumbled into what seemed to be almost like those fake towns, like Nuketown, like a pretend town. It looked like a military base. There were fake traffic lights. There were like big symbols, like saying like, this, that. And it was like, whoa, this looks like a pretend town, a fake town, a military village or whatever. And we were both spooked out by that. So we just started to, run for a little bit, jog away from there because some sirens went off. Then, again, many shenanigans later, we finally make our way onto like a highway, an interstate, if you want to call it that in America translation. But like we go onto a motorway, and we walk on a motorway for 10 miles or whatever home, and it took 8 hours, which, pro tip, that is not how long it should take. Okay, I think we've covered this island now, by the way. Pro tip, 8 hours to walk 10 miles. There's a horrifically bad ratio. You should not be happy with that. But it's how long it did take us. And yeah, basically, the entire time, we're just like, oh, we'll get there anytime. We tried hitchhiking. Hitchhiking's not a thing in the UK. Is a lesson I've learned now. So pro tip. Oh, see what I mean? Like, I swear I didn't even look at him. What did he see from that? Why did he assume that I was angry with him, or that he should be angry with me? It just doesn't make any sense. And yeah, it was one of those things that's like, man, the amount of like walking for that long like changes your perspective on a few things. One, you get to really know a guy. So even though one of my friends basically kind of shunned me from his life at that particular point, I mean, we kind of like reconciled later, but it was never really fully okay. It was more like, oh, hey, yeah, we can still be friends, question mark. But with the other friend, the one that we walked home with, we became much better friends. So the life lesson to learn from that is that, one, some people really cannot cope with many different things and should not be trusted to. And the second lesson is like, you know, walking home 10 miles, really bad idea. He had to actually, when he was done, he had to get like a bus back because like in the morning because he left his tent there because again it was a camp out. So that was a bit of a funny like addition to that one. Also, this was just after this was just after I'd started like a super long relationship. So like, oh, you know, I came home at like, you know, 8 a.m. or something, and like, oh, the girlfriend's like, oh, I was expecting you later. What a nice little surprise. And that was a nice little moment at the time. Again, that relationship has long since fallen through for many other unrelated crazy-based reasons. But you know, my point with all of this is just meant to be like, you know, the interesting thing about the interesting thing about social groups as a whole really is that sometimes you make friends through having shared non-friends. Or sometimes a shared bad experience is better for a friendship than a shared good experience. And again, that one friend who I again still friends with to this day, still comes around on a regular basis. We play D&D in case you're curious. But the interesting thing is like these sorts of things will bring you closer to a person, and maybe that's a thing you want. Maybe it's a thing you don't want. In which case, never do anything that's terrible because that takes a lot of effort and a lot of stuff away from you. So, with these last few torches, so there's more terrible stories by the way, and I'd love to dive into them. But I think we've now just to focus on the Minecraft stuff. I think we've now managed to cover every major bit of ground that has multiple Endermen on it with torches. I'm going to make a few more torches just to be extra sure here, but I believe with fair amount of certainty that we've mostly done it because I see way fewer Endermen now. Oh, there's still some down there. So we could always get rid of them. We could always peaceful it. We could always work out something for these, but I think it's now going to be impossible for Endermen spawn in most places. We'll be extra careful every now and then, just like, you know, just place a few more torches. I know we're being inefficient, and that's fine for now. But I believe that we might have just done this. So place a torch down there, place a torch on the side here, knock this guy off because now he won't respawn. Because it's kind of weird that like there are Endermen there. Have they? Yeah, they've spawned on that ridge there. Do you see that? I think that's a place they can spawn. But for the most part, with that being an exception, I think we've done it. Yeah, there's a few weird exceptions there too because of the curvature of that. Okay, so what we're going to have to do is spend a little bit of time, maybe do a big mining endstone for another, you know, X number of minutes, just to get the very last of the, okay, so knock him off, just to like kind of like smoothen out the edges on that, because it's the rough edges that are causing the weird Enderman spawns. But besides that, we now have very few places Enderman can spawn, as I understand it. And if we make a dedicated place where they should spawn, maybe inside like a box or something, in fact, we could just make it really far away from the island so they can't teleport over, then that could be our solution to the Enderman issues. So yeah, making Enderman farm will also help this whole thing out here. I think we've now gone to the point where there are very few specific spots that Enderman can spawn, and that's basically all I could ever ask for. So there we go. We did it for the most part. Let's check actually all the way around. There are Enderman spawning here. We got a huge build-up anywhere perhaps down here. Nope, no build-up Enderman that I can see. Oh, actually, wait. Up there is a bit of a build-up, it looks like. Yeah, I think we maybe did this slightly wrong. Only one way to be sure, though, is to knock them all off and see if they respawn. But yeah, I think, for the most part, we have now removed all the sources of unwanted, unnecessary Endermen, and that's a good thing. And it means we can now move on to the next phase of this project. This project, placing 55,000 glass blocks, has been such a huge one. It's one I'm working on. It's one that's taken a huge amount of my time and effort, but it's been a pretty interesting experience because I've learned a lot about the end. I've learned a lot about dealing with it. And again, that's one of the fun things in Minecraft to me is like, you know, when you make a fun survival project, you end up with a fun survival outcome, generally speaking. So, yeah, with a few weird exceptions of, like, these top things, also gonna do these now, by the way. But with a few weird exceptions, we've now pretty much finished covering the end in glass. We have to do some of the sides a bit more, as you can see. There's a few rough patches. It's never gonna be entirely clear around the edges, like, you know, let me just share something and be entirely, oh, God, what just happened? Let me just share something and be entirely honest with you. There's a few sides of the end that I know I'm never gonna get entirely properly done. I think this one over here is the worst for it. Like, you can see, like, how am I gonna do some of these edges? But for the most part, we've covered a lot of the sides of the end in glass. We've done a really good job with it for the most part. Again, big kind of asterisk there. We've got a huge amount of glass all the way around the end, and we've covered all of this side for the most part with a few weird little gaps. I'm feeling good about this one, and it means we can move on to the next phase, which means in the next, like, couple weeks, expect to see this finalized version of the video. It's one I'm really hyped about. It's one I've been really enjoying, because the big survival project videos, especially when it's a big one like this that's been taking months of time, you know, obviously they can't come out regularly, but they're some of my favorite videos to make on this channel. So if you like seeing survival projects, then look forward to seeing a new one in the fairly soon-to-be future. So yeah, I'll be flying around, picking up a few weird patchy spots over the next few days, and then we'll be working on the other stuff, because I've still got about 10,000 glass blocks left after finishing this, so we can now do some weird glass-based things, like glass pathways to the end islands. That'll be fun. There's going to be a lot of fun stuff that you can expect to see in that video and maybe future Let's Plays. But yeah, for now, I hope you all enjoyed this episode of the Minecraft Xbox Update Adventures Let's Play. You can like it if you did like it. You can share it if you really liked it. And if you want to support the channel and the weird things we do here, YouTube just added a join button. So I'm going to let you know about it, because a lot of people have been asking for that and been wondering, like, oh, I can't find it. Sorry, I really want to join, but I can't. If you are that sort of person who wants to give back and you like supporting the things that you enjoy, then there's a join button found just below this video on most YouTube apps. And if you click that, then you'll find... you know, it will tell you that, you know, for this amount a month, you get these perks. It's kind of cool. It's something I like, and it's something you can sign up for by clicking that join button. But for now, I hope you all enjoyed this video, because I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.